Hello everyone, thanks for joining me on the best day of the week. Today, you're gonna see the perspective from a CEO about risks, about risk management. You're gonna see one of the most human CEOs that I've ever met. And if you like, please press the like button. But don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss anything in the future. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Nick, for those who don't know you yet, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Nick Denning. I'm the CEO of a company called Diegesis Limited. I'm also the CEO or managing director of a new startup called Cysure Services Limited. Cysure Services is the company that we're growing to focus on our cybersecurity offerings. Diegesis is the company that's had 10 years, 12 years lifetime, has the brand name for our integration work.
A long time on the road, Nick, leading two companies, so a lot of workload should be like crazy for you, right? But
I just feel so privileged to be born and live through the times that I have. If I couldn't have found somebody to pay me to do what I've done, I'd have paid to do it as a hobby. It's such fun. So it's no big deal. I feel very privileged and very lucky to have I've had my journey when I've had it.
Considering that we are on this road for so long time, right? Leading different types of teams, different types of topics in the IT world, now leading two different companies. Have you seen anything with this precedent that we've seen this year with the pandemic when you're talking about cybersecurity or any other field that you are engaged?
No, actually I haven't, and it's been very interesting if you try and compare times in the past, how fundamentally different this is. So we've had recessions before. We had a pretty bad recession in the early 90s, the 92, 93, that sort of time. But the really interesting thing is that all the way through those challenging times, the bright people, the really able people always had work. And there was a little bit of, oh, you guys don't know how lucky you are and all that sort of thing. The real difference now is that some of the brightest people can't get work because just no one is hiring. And so this is a fundamentally different recession to to previous times.
What is the main impact that this pandemic has given or provided to the cybersecurity world, as per your perspective?
So in a sense it hasn't changed because the essentials are still there. The essentials are unchanged. That in the cybersecurity space, there are a lot of people who aren't giving due importance to cybersecurity, and that's always been the case. I think there's a real difference now where, because people aren't all in the same office, they aren't doing that. Hey, have you seen this? Factor, and so I think it's actually a lot easier for example, the CEO fraud, the spear phishing attacks to be successful, just because you're not in the same office as your team. There's no one to share, no one to show and consider. So I think that's probably the biggest difference. But the whole load of things are invariant. There are a whole load of people who don't want to do anything about cybersecurity because it costs money and it doesn't deliver a business return, does it? And of course, and in America, for instance, all the feedback we've got in America is that they produced NIST, which was really, really interesting, very, very thorough, and no one will do anything, because the Americans just say, I'm not going to spend, despite the introduction from in front of risk of NIST, the NIST documentation that Obama wrote, saying, you aren't supposed to be making your businesses bankrupt by spending squillions doing this. Nevertheless, people are saying, I'm not going to spend 5% of my gross profit on cybersecurity. The gross profit is the thing that I live or die by. So do you know what? We're not going to do anything. And of course, if you run a business that gets attacked, the statistics for the number of businesses that survive an attack are appalling. So many businesses go out of business if they have a material attack. And so, strangely enough, their voice is no longer heard. So you never hear the businesses that have been attacked and failed, because they're no longer there. So all you hear are you hear, and also the people who made a mistake are then all into cover up because there's reputation, even though they're not supposed to, and even though they're supposed to support stuff.
Of course, there is an evolution, right? When you're talking about cybersecurity, data privacy, and all these topics related. Prior to this pandemic, it was more a reactive situation, right? Where we have a breach, we have a problem, we engage with the security team and go there and solve it. Now, of course, we do have the GDPR for a couple of years. We have a lot of other privacy laws in Australia, in US, in Brazil, in India. So there is an evolution. But even though I was seeing a lot of on a reactive mode, the executives. During the pandemic, everyone working remotely, and not necessarily the chance for an attack, the chance to suffer a breach has increased. But the focus from the malicious folks, let me put it like this, has increased to do something.
Yep. And we see just over the last month, we've seen a huge increase in the number of attacks by email. And thankfully, so I think there's one safety mechanism is that our people only now connect to the network when they need to via the VPN when they're out of the office. So the risk of the attack propagating onto our network is reduced, but it's still material.
The level of engagement between the security team and the executives has increased, which is good, because they understand now how important is the security team, right? The fundamentally important role that they play within the organization. But even though I see that the CISOs and the CIO plays one role, that they need to show the executives why they are important. Because at the end, the company are concerned about how can I increase my sales, how can I increase my revenue, how can I decrease my cost. And it is up to the CISOs. I'm talking specifically about security, but we can go broader than the IT structure, is to show to the business how important they are to the business. How we, as a security team, we can help you to decrease your cost or to increase your revenue. So exactly what you said in the beginning, right? Sometimes there is not a simple translation on the ROI, for example, to implement some security controls. But if the security team is good enough to show how important it is and how it's going to impact the business, this is something that needs to be played correctly. But consider, as I said, right, let me call the good side of the pandemic for the security world is we are now be able to engage more with the executives. The executives are asking us what to do from a security perspective. Do you share the same thoughts? Nick, what do you think about that?
I think there's an issue because costs have gone up. We've had to buy more kits. There's new kit that's had to be distributed. There are more laptops that have to go out. How do you actually manage that estate? So I think the estate management piece is probably what's being thrown up, and because of course now if you're now sending all your devices outside the company network, now it's a lot more apparent, or it's very clear that we're all a lot more vulnerable. How do you know your employees aren't connecting onto the Starbucks network? So the importance of things like VPNs and the importance of that infrastructure, I think, is now. I think that's where I see the sort of the sharp, pointy bit that's busy stimulating the security teams and the CIOs to appreciate the change in the risk profile. The other part of the equation, I think, the other side of the coin, is that that most of the systems historically have been closed boxes, and the very few executives actually get any understanding of the level of risk they're facing. So one of the things that we're looking at is creating a simple solution that will suck data out of all your cyber technology and pop it up onto a dashboard, so that you've got an overall level of risk. And it is very interesting how the fundamental bit that people ignored was training and awareness. And now, because people are out away from the office, there's been an explosion in training and awareness offerings.
That's a very good point, Nick, because we can have all the technical controls, right? Very from a technical perspective, we can be very good and do our due diligence very thoroughly, but as people say, right, the user are the weakest link when you're talking about security, right? So would you say that awareness and training should be put as a priority for 2021?
It's the most important lesson that I think everybody has that's come out of this. It's absolutely in everybody's face.
It's so important to me to understand how people like you in this position, right, position as a leader for so long, has support your whole team, your whole organization throughout this period. What is the importance of your role during this period for all your employees, all your partners, your clients that are working with you?
So it's that's a very interesting journey. So when I first started my business, I just gave orders. I mean, that's what I was trained to do. I didn't realize I was giving orders. I just said, what are we going to do today? Right, you're doing that, you're doing that, you're doing that. And it was a real insight about 5 years later when I realized I couldn't grow my business because I was just giving orders and I was telling people what to do. And I've had some fantastic young people. I trained them up, and then I did all the difficult stuff because I wasn't prepared to risk the reputation of the company by trusting anybody. And it took I sat in that miasma for about 3 or 4 years, not realizing what the hell was going on, and it took me to bring in another director who helped me see the errors of my ways. Since then, it's been a journey about how do you manage your own ego, how do you I mean, the fundamental is how can you be curious? And there's a colleague behind me. We've just been having a conversation for half an hour before we came, and I'd started off down it's got to be like this, got to do this, and it's been really interesting just applying our Dale Carnegie training and getting into that an engagement about what, rather than telling the answer's this, what was the question, and turning it around into being curious, finding out the situation, but at the same time you've got to apply the principles and you've got to create a framework. And I think I see that as the most important thing as I come towards the end of my career. No, coming towards the middle. As I'm in the latter half of my career, it's that how can you articulate the principles in such a way that people can understand them and follow them, and without them being either brittle, so that once they get broken, the whole thing smashes. So that they're malleable, so you can evolve them, while at the same time be evolving them under control, so the business doesn't ossify with these are the principles, that's what you do, and woe betide anybody that breaks them. While at the same time, if you're trying to build something, if everybody builds something that's slightly different, then strange enough, none of them will fit together. So you fail that way. So it's that how do you evolve? How do you innovate rapidly while still delivering a quality product? And that's very interesting. So in this area, one of the things I've been encouraging some of my people to look at is the concept of system architectures and TOGAF and trying to understand how you can lay out a framework within which other people can operate, while at the same time avoiding the problem of actually the things important is delivering. Don't just try and polish the model. I mean, we've all seen people who've I'm the database expert. I just spend all my time trying to have a perfect backhouse an hour normal form data model, and strangely enough, no one will use it because it's too complicated. So it's and so which are the things that invariant, and which are the things that you change, and which are the things that are just part of everybody's professional evolution, and we're always going to see that change and see those learnings, and how can you then help everybody to understand that the journey that they've come along, and therefore to be able to appreciate the journey that people who've joined after them are going to have to navigate.
If you could give a couple of advices, right, for the younger people on this journey, what would be this advice?
Make sure you know thoroughly what you know, because that provides a foundation on which you can build things. The next thing is try and make yourself redundant. Mm-hmm. Yes, you make yourself redundant by training other people up to be able to do what you can do, because if you can't do that, then you can't get promoted to do the next job. And then the other part of that is that bit of curiosity. It's that always aspiring to be ready to do the next job if you were the next level up, or the thing you really want to do if you were called upon to do it.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant, Nick. But now going to the very other side on this, right? We are talking about young people, right, where you provide your advices. But what type of advices you give to the senior executives, right? Your clients or your network, when you're talking about the future of IT? What you as a leader provide to them as advisors?
Where are the people in your organization that could do more, and how do you help them? How do you help them free them up from themselves so that they feel empowered to do more? Mm-hmm. How do you make what we're doing such fun that they want to do more?
Which is a very interesting topic, right? Because sometimes people feel afraid to provide ideas or to implement something. So the fear of the failure makes people don't want to be proactive. And you think they're going to get punished is even worse, right? So you are saying that create this collaborative environment is something that the executives is.
That is a very interesting question, because at the same time you have to hold people to account. If you don't find a way of rewarding people who are doing well, then why does anybody else bother? Everybody gets treated the same, so why bother? So while at the same time you don't want to denigrate the people that at the moment can't be bothered. One of the things I'm trying to, I think I'm doing reasonably well, is helping people who are prepared to step up to be able to run rather than have to shuffle. And then they will create set an example so that the others will realize they can do the same.
Normally the companies are talking about risks. They don't have ownerships on the risks. They're just doing some qualitative analysis. Oh, this is a high, medium, low risk, and let's think about a plan in the future. But how can we be more quantitative when we're talking about risks? Who is going to be the owner of that risk? So this is something that I've been discussing a lot with the executives, right? How the risk structure needs to be put in place, right?
Did you realize that in my first company, the product that was the subject for our flotation, we developed a risk management product. Mm-hmm. very interested in getting involved in formal risk management systems and practices and processes.
Do you think that the executives paid attention to the risks in the past? Of course, there's a big companies, they are so well structured, right, and mature on this. So this is out of topic, of course. But in general, do you think that the perspective when you're talking about risks in the past is the same that we're talking now, and in the future we can make better?
I think that historically, a company ran itself through the competence of its employees and its ability to promote incompetent people out of the areas where they could make foul ups. But what life moved so slowly then, and there were still people who were there who provide the corporate memory of we tried that three years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and it didn't work for these reasons, but we promoted the people who had a big appetite for risk and knew how to and had the personal tools to fight their way through the project. As we move into a world where in recent years, it's been a far more fluid working environment. People get hired and fired and so on and so forth. Then the ability to have a corporate memory, I think, is much more difficult, and therefore I think people are a lot more risk averse.
Hopefully, you can see your tool being used more and more. We know how important risk is, and hopefully the executive sees the same thing, right?
The problem with risk management is finding a single product that will that will support an organization through its capability maturity journey. Mm-hmm. So the product you want when your capability is 0 is so different from the product you need when your capability maturity is 3, let alone actually if you ever get up to 5. Mm-hmm. So and the sophistication would just be probably unmanageable. Because of course different parts of your business will be at different levels of capability maturity, and yet they all need to enter data into the same system. So how do you make sure that you can normalize that data so that somebody who is not sophisticated at all can still enter data that can be viewed by someone who is very sophisticated? So it's a really interesting journey, and most people can't go down it.
I've learned so much now with you, Nick, and I hope everyone that will be listening this conversation will learn also from you. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Also appreciate it as much as I have.
Great. Well, thank you very much indeed. I've thoroughly enjoyed the last hour, and best of luck getting it all off the ground.
Thank you very much, guys. If you want more information about this conversation, check out the description below. And if you lost any videos from before, check out the channel. Thank you very much, and see you next Wednesday.